Welcome to Beyond the Bloom, a K-State Research and Extension Douglas County, Kansas podcast. Each month we'll have a conversation about the role plants play in our world. Yes, we will talk about food and flower gardening, but we'll also talk about plant care, plant recommendations, and plant biology. Everything from peonies to prairies, succulents to squash.
Because when you want to beautify your space, support the local ecosystem, or grow your own fresh herbs and veggies, your local extension office is here to help. Let's get started.
Hello, I'm Sharon Ashworth, and I'm the Horticulture and Natural Resources Agent for Douglas County. And I'm here today on Beyond the Bloom with Sandra Siebert. Sandra is a longtime gardener and volunteers with the Douglas County Extension Master Gardeners, and Sandra volunteers with our Horticulture Hotline as well. So if you've ever asked a question through our hotline, you might have gotten advice on gardening from Sandra. Sandra is also our go-to person for fall gardening advice, which is why we've invited her to the podcast today. And so before we begin and I introduce Sandra, I just want to remind everybody that our microgrants are available. So those are up to $500 to start gardens for senior centers, for schools, public access gardens rather than private gardens. Go to our website. You'll see if you are part of a nonprofit or part of an entity that would like to start a garden, check out our microgrants. We're also starting our fall Master Gardener volunteer training classes, and those will start on September 4th. But applications are still open now, and they'll be open through August 11th. So go ahead and check out our website for that as well. So now let me turn to Sandra, who's here, and introduce Sandra.
Hi.
Thanks for coming here, Sandra, and welcome to Beyond the Bloom. So we're going to start talking about fall gardening today. Sandra's our go-to person for that. So we'll spend some time here on all sorts of topics. So the first basic question I want to start with is, why might someone want to put in a fall garden?
Well, because this gives you a chance to really create more produce from your garden. Most of the spring crops that you put in when it's really chilly will do very well once the weather starts to cool. And I know it's hot, right? Well, maybe not right now in this moment, but it's hot at this time of year and dry. But you can overcome those challenges. And one of the best things about having a fall garden is that some of these vegetables will be much sweeter after we get some light freezing weather. For example, kale will be, if you've never had kale that's grown during cold weather, you haven't really had kale because it's very good. Cabbage is sweeter. All of those leafy greens are sweeter and grow much better when the weather is chilly rather than when the weather is warming up. So that's two things: extra produce and tastier vegetables. Root vegetables also will be sweeter after we get a little nip in the air.
Right, so for those kale skeptics out there,
yes,
this is a chance when everybody's pushing kale on you to say, okay, I'll try it, but if it's fall-grown kale,
yes,
that might be better.
Especially when you pick it very young.
Okay, unlike the big giant leaves in my garden right now. That, by the way, you can turn into pesto. I do that. What other sorts of vegetables can you grow in a fall garden? When we talked earlier, we talked about mustard greens, and what else can we grow?
Mustard greens, turnips, radishes, winter radishes, lettuce, leaf lettuce would come a little later than now, but romaine you want to plant pretty quickly. I just read something put out by K-State that said right now is when you can start planting leafy greens from seed, like lettuce, especially romaine lettuce because it takes longer to mature than the leaf lettuce. Carrots, beets, kohlrabi, kale, mustard greens, and all of those Asian greens, anything that has a really short season of, 65 days or less. I love peas, especially the snap peas, but peas do not translate well into a fall garden.
Now, when you say plant seeds, now, do you mean like seeds starting in your basement like in the spring, or do you mean in ground?
For things like cabbage and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and some of those longer season ones, you would start them in little pots indoors in the middle of July to plant out late this month. But all of these other things you can plant in the ground by seed, which makes it easier because you can plant those from seed anytime from now into mid-September.
And when, if you're thinking about, well, I don't have the ability really to do seed right now, are there some seedlings that maybe, if you could find them in the garden centers, that you could plant a little later?
You might. I have not, up until this point, found anybody local who offers plants for fall crops. But I just discovered yesterday, to my delight, because my little cabbage and broccoli seedlings that I started don't look very happy, that Pines Garden and Market on the north edge of town is going to have some available. Some cabbage and spinach, lettuce, and Brussels sprouts, and maybe something else that I've forgotten when I talk to them. But in about 3 weeks, you can check with them, and they should have some ready to go.
Yeah, and there might be other garden centers as
And there
well
might be
that have some fall veggies. Sometimes it looks a little thin, but if more and more people are into fall gardening, there should be something at your favorite garden center.
Yes, I advocate that you always say, but I want this when you go in and they don't have it, because they do stock based on what people demand.
So possibly seedlings, starting seeds. Now, are there special considerations for, I mean, it's really hot in the summer. So what sort of precautions should people wanting to start a fall garden? Because when I think fall garden, I'm thinking chillier weather.
Yes.
But to have to start in this heat, there must be some special considerations.
There are. For one thing, if you've had your soil bare all summer, it's going to be hot. You want to cool it down. I would recommend not leaving your soil bare ever, because it's not good for the microorganisms in the soil. But I would water it and cover it either with a thick layer of light-colored mulch, like hay is my preferred mulch. Or I've also, to start some seeds like carrots, I've laid boards down on it, and you just leave that and let it cool. I get shade cloth and put that over plastic hoops to shade when they're growing, when it's hot, so you can do that. Any way that you can cool the soil down. One thing is, when you're planting seeds at this time of year when it's hot, is you plant them a little deeper. That way they're down more, they'll retain water more. And it'll be just a tiny bit cooler. And then when I do my seeds, whatever time of year I'm planting seeds, I put a very, very thin layer of hay over top of them, because that will help retain moisture and probably also reflect a little bit of the heat. But you also need to water very frequently. And starting seeds when it's hot, I spray them 2, maybe 3 times a day, depending on how hot and windy it is, because you want to keep those seed beds moist. Because if you get your seeds to germinate and then it gets dry, then they die. Mm-hmm. And so you've wasted your time. And like I said, shade. If you've got a slightly shady spot in your garden, this is a lot of these plants will thrive on less than what's called full sun. They'll thrive on less than 6 hours of direct sunlight a day. Some of them will be fine down to 4 hours of direct sunlight. So that shady spot, don't avoid it, because it'll help you out at this time of year.
Well, that's really good news for those of us who live in the city and have all the trees to deal with. We often struggle growing vegetables, so that's good to know. So fall gardening and that shady spot to use would be wonderful.
Exactly.
So when you say plant the seeds deeper, can you give... So what are we talking here in terms of how deep you should plant? Let's see, if you're going to plant kale, spinach, some of your favorites, how?
Probably about double the size of the seed. Usually when I'm planting kale or a lot of those really tiny seeds, I just kind of brush them in. So you might want to brush them in a little bit deeper. Another recommendation is you sprinkle compost over the top of your seed beds as a mulch to help retain moisture, and so that will be the same. And the light layer of hay also will serve as sort of a little bit of extra depth.
Mm-hmm. Is there a concern about potentially overwatering? I mean, the heat, you don't want the seeds to rot.
I don't think so.
No.
I
Okay.
mean, if it would start raining and be really cloudy and you continue watering 2 or 3 times a day, maybe. I have not ever experienced overwatering.
I know
in the
that can
summer.
be an issue in the spring, especially if you're planting your warmer season crops a little early and the soil is cool and damp.
Right.
That can be a problem there, but it's good to know in fall you don't have to worry about
Yeah.
it as much. So is there a soil temperature that is preferred? Is it something to watch like we do in the spring when we were waiting for that 55 degrees to plant our tomatoes?
There is, and it's crop dependent. I did not look this up before I came in, but you can go online and find charts with germination temperatures, and some of them are fine up until, a temperature of 80 or something like that. But yeah, you can find that. And so, like I said, the best thing is to not let the soil get super hot to start with. Keep it covered during the summer. Well, keep it covered all the time, but especially during the summer months if you're going to want to plant these cool season crops.
And certainly do that before. So let's say if somebody's just listening to this, like, oh, I think I want to try this this year, but they've had their soil bare for now, they could do this beforehand. Like right now, they could water it, put
Water
shade
it and
cloth
cover it
off
up.
or mulch and just sort of get it ready.
Yes, yes. And when you do plant, I've done this with carrots before. I haven't done it with any of the other crops, but just take a 2x4 or something like that and lay it over. After you've planted the seeds, lay it over the row. And you have to check it every few days because some of them will germinate very quickly. But that'll help keep things cooler, keep the sun from beating down up on it and heating it up more.
Are there some other issues? I mean, right now, a lot of people are battling pests
Yes.
in their garden. So is that an issue?
It is. The pest pressure is going to start out pretty high, but I haven't had a lot of trouble with most pests because at this time of year, when you're getting started with small things, I don't think the pests are going to be as voracious. If you have a lot of grasshoppers, a lot of little grasshoppers, that might be an issue. The only things that I really am concerned with about pests are when you're planting bedding plants, especially cabbage and broccoli, because the cabbage white butterflies and the cabbage loopers and a few others really go for the cabbage family crops. And so I use what's called a floating row cover, which is a polyspun. It's a spun fabric. It's white, and you get it by the foot. And I put that over a PVC pipe that I bent and stuck each end in the ground, and that prevents flying insects from getting into them. Mm-hmm. And if you've got a lot of little plants, I would try that. And other than that, it's mainly just vigilance. Watch to see what's coming in to eat your plants. I've gotten into trouble before because I just didn't go out and check enough.
And I imagine that can be a little difficult for people because it's so hot.
Yes.
And they've sort of come through the main season, maybe a little bit tired of being vigilant in the garden. Yes. But fall gardening is worth it.
And the pest pressure will ease up as the temperatures cool down. Mm-hmm. And pests and all of these insects go through their natural breeding cycles. And usually it's the larvae and the younger ones that are the most voracious. Mm-hmm. But also if you have a garden that's inviting to ladybugs and other predatory insects, you will have less of an issue then. And even wasps. I've seen wasps go hunting in my cabbages for the little caterpillars that are eating my cabbage plants.
So that's kind of satisfying to see that.
Yes.
Normally you would avoid wasps. It's nice to see them in your garden, for sure. I'm wondering if are there any vegetables when we're thinking about season extension and fall gardening? What could you plant if you really wanted to push it into November? What can you plant?
There are some, like kale is pretty cold hardy, but root vegetables, the radishes, especially the winter radishes, turnips, and carrots, you can leave them in ground for quite a long time, especially if you mulch heavily over them more and more as the season cools. Last year, I left some winter radishes in the ground until mid-November, whenever it was that they started forecasting temperatures in the teens. It might have been December, I don't recall, but I didn't pull the last of them until then. Because, and sometimes the very tops will look a little frozen, and just cut that off, and you've got good radishes.
That's really great to think that you could push having fresh vegetables out of your garden through November.
Yes.
Pull them out before it gets into the teens,
yes.
right? But pushing it that far is great. I mean, I have to admit, I talked to you once about this. I had just planted some of those tiller radishes, daikon radishes, for something other than it was just to loosen the soil. I didn't mean to eat them.
Yes.
I pulled one out and tasted it, and it was the most delicious daikon radish I'd ever had.
And the nice thing about radishes and carrots is once you pull them, they hold for a long time in your refrigerator.
Great. Well, thank you, Sandra. This is going to be hopefully inspire people to put in that fall garden and have fresh vegetables all the way possibly through mid-November, depending on our weather conditions. So
I sure hope so.
So I may try again this year to try to do that.
All I can say is keep at it.
Keep at it and remain vigilant.
Yes.
As always with the gardening. So thank you all, and don't forget to check our website for the show notes. There'll be garden calendars on the website, a link to garden calendars, a link to the microgrants, a link to sign up for Master Gardener classes, so you can be like Sandra here and know all the things about gardening. And also there's a link to the Kansas Garden Guide. It's a booklet that you can download that has an enormous amount of information, especially if you're new to garden. It's got all the answers and questions in it. So
it's a great resource.
Yeah, it's a great resource. So thank you all, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to K-State Extension Douglas County's podcast. We hope you tune in again for not only more research-based information and resources you can trust, but also good conversation. Until next time.